Hey, horror fam, Poltergeist Steve here with my first guest. Which I'm so excited to introduce. We have Angel from the YouTube channel and podcast Voices from the Mausoleum. Hi, Angel.
Hi, I'm so excited, and I'm excited to be your first guest. That's even better. I'm pumped.
Yes, yes. No pressure, though.
No, no pressure. Just setting the standard for the whole thing. No big deal.
No, so doing something a little different for the channel, right? I mean, I kind of was just kind of getting my feet wet in the beginning, just doing some movie reviews. I got my first trailer reaction, but we got to talking, I think, about just the paranormal in general, and we had a conversation just about ghosts and experiences, and you shared an episode that you did with your friend Mike.
Yeah.
Um, so the episode we were talking, I don't know if you want to tell our viewers now a little bit about that episode and
Yeah,
how that came
sure.
about.
Yeah. Mike is my one of my best friends. I've known him for a really long time. He's married to my childhood best friend, and he is my editor as well. But we've done a couple of ghosty things together, and he has a ton of stories from growing up that I've heard, as just off and on as I've known him. And I think it was actually Mike's idea. He was like, we could do a video and we could talk about these experiences. And Mike has way more ghost paranormal experiences than I do because he used to go ghost hunting, which is something I'm way too chicken to do. But I had a couple of experiences. So we sat down and we had like a drink or two and we just like talked about our experiences. And it was a lot of fun. But he has like so many more. I think he only shared like three or four.
Yeah, and they all kind of tend to stay on that same like church road. That was kind of the theme of his stories.
Yeah, because that's right down from that's in his hometown. So that was where he used to always go. And yeah, he had some pretty crazy stuff that he has seen and experienced. And like he says, like all the time, he has stories that like if you didn't know him, you wouldn't believe him because you'd think he was like full of it. And he does have some that'll like really make you uncomfortable. And that was kind of funny because, and you know this because you've seen the video, but like we were in the middle of talking about like one of the scariest things that's happened to him, and the light behind us just like completely shut off. And if I hadn't already had like a couple of drinks, I would have noticed a lot faster. But Mike reacts, and then you see Nico like this, and he's like, the light behind us just went out. And then I like panic laugh for like 5
So like he was ready to go, and you were like first off in the horror movie.
I told him, I don't know if this made it into the video or not, but I can't remember. But I told him, I was like, we are not filming ghost stories at my place anymore. I was like, no thanks.
Yeah. So I think sometimes when you're kind of telling ghost stories, you're a little on edge too. So the littlest thing is gonna get you.
Yeah, it definitely did. It took me a little bit to get back. Thank goodness I didn't have any more stories to tell. And then Mike like looks at the camera all nonchalant. He's like, "That's how you know it's real." And I'm like, "For you, you're used to this stuff." Oh, it gave me so much anxiety after that. And I'm like, I have to live here.
Oh man, I was almost a ghost hunter.
Were you?
Almost. It was
Yeah.
right after college, and I don't know. I was probably on a binge watching Ghost Hunters or something. So I don't know. I was like, this would be so much fun to do. So I actually got in touch with the Long Island Paranormal Society, I think they're called. I forget what. Yeah. And I was going to join them, and then I ended up getting a job offer, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can balance it. And I was like, I wish I could, and it ended up not working out. But I really wanted to.
I would love to do that. I think like so one of my goals for this year is actually to go ghost hunting. There's a lot of paranormal groups and stuff in Atlanta, and so my plan is to find like a reputable one. I don't want to go out with somebody that's going to like get me arrested for trespassing.
No.
Or maybe sacrifice me. I would prefer to avoid that too. So I'm trying to find like a really good one and be like, hey, you want to take me out on a safe ghost hunting where there's like happy ghosts, and see how it goes.
Can't guarantee happy ghosts, but we could stay away from territorial people, maybe.
Yeah. I'll take it. But I think, I would love to do it. It is kind of like a little nerve wracking. And I know we'll probably talk later about like beliefs is like the kind of things that we think about all of this and everything. But like, I do worry about like it's like bringing stuff back because I have a toddler, so I'm like, ooh, is it worth the risk now that I have like someone else to consider? But I do really want to do it. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we don't want a poltergeist situation happening at home.
I have a lot of love for that situation as a movie. I don't need the real life experience.
You're not fixing to get wrapped up in a rope and sent into the other side, right? Okay.
No, I'm good. I'm good on that part. Hard pass for me.
So that's actually a fun thing to mention is that we both share an affinity for poltergeist.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure that could be its own other video. Just
Probably.
talk, see a whole series. I could talk about that 24/7, that movie.
Yeah. No, that's my first memory of life. I was 3.5, almost 4 years old the first time I saw that movie. And that's what's wrong with me.
Where it all started.
That's where it all started. Yeah.
Damn you, Tobe Hooper and Steven Spielberg, you know?
That's right. Yeah.
So it started, that was early for you. I didn't probably see it until I was like 9 or 10, but it was probably like my
Right.
first proper horror movie.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
think that's what sparked it for me. I had seen like Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark
Oh,
and
of
all
course.
that,
Oh,
but it
yeah.
was definitely my first proper horror film, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. So today I think so. Yeah. So I was inspired by your episode, and I thought this might be a good, chance for us to swap some ghost stories and talk about just like you said, like like a minute ago, just theories on the other
Yeah.
side and the spiritual and where we come from, because I'm sure there's so much that influences that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Growing up, so I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah.
So.
Me too.
I was thinking of starting. Well, why don't you start us off? Did you have a first story in mind?
I can start. Yeah, I can start with like a simple one from when I was like a little kid. Well, I say little, I think I was maybe a teenager.
Mhm.
And I only have a couple of these, and none of them are like too crazy. Well, one of them is like unsettling, but I think otherwise they're pretty tame. But yeah, so my growing up, my grandmother had this house that she like had lived in like her whole life, raised her whole kid, like her whole kids, her whole family. And my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, had actually died in the house. Like, I was probably like 2 or 3 when he died. I don't really have any memories of him, but when I was about 12 or 13, I used to go stay over there with my cousins, and we'd have sleepovers and we'd do all these things there overnight. And one of the times that I stayed, we'd gone into, getting ready to settle down, but not going to bed because we're kids. And we're just all like laying around, hanging out, talking, watching something on the TV. And the doorknob on the door to the room, the door was closed, but the doorknob started to kind of turn a little bit. And the door just like opened. And it opened, I don't know, like just enough for like a person to be like widthwise.
Yeah.
And we're all like, all of us are like, don't like that at all. Like all of us are kind of looking at each other. We're like, is somebody messing with us? Is it one of the adults? Like, and then it just stays open for like a second. And then it just very normally, it didn't slam or move too slowly, but it was almost like it was, like it was being pulled close, like it normal would, when you're leaving a room or whatever. And so we all kind of like got really freaked out. And I remember getting up to go look just to make sure that nobody else was awake, because my aunt that was staying at the time was a smoker, and she would go out the back door. And sometimes when you go out the, pressure in the house, when you move different doors, does different things. And everybody was asleep. It was just us. And then I think at some point after that, I had actually started looking at photos that I had taken of my grandmother in that house. It may have been after she passed away. And I started noticing like not every picture I had of her, but a lot of the pictures I had of her, there's like this weird like fog kind of around her, not all the way, but just like kind of off in the distance a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of always just thought that was like my grandfather checking on us. Like it was literally like a parent opening a door, making sure you're not up to no good, trying to sneak out or do anything crazy. And then you just close the door and you go on. And it never happened again. It was never something that had happened before. So it was pretty creepy when I was a teenager, or a preteen rather. But I just always thought that's probably what it was. Cause like I said, he died in the house and I had the pictures with my grandmother and stuff. So that was like my first paranormal experience.
Pretty creepy too for your first experience.
Yeah.
But it was interesting what you said, your logical brain, right? You're looking at like, okay, is it a cross breeze, pressure from other doors?
Yeah.
And then, but the way you said it was like, it was very like deliberate movements.
Yes, very deliberate, not as slow or too fast. Like, because usually when doors slam because the pressure change, it's usually quick. They slam and they scare you to death.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it was very deliberate. It definitely reminded me of like a parent checking on their kid or something like that. It was very strange.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think, as creepy as it is, I think it's heartwarming that he might have been there to look after you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you kind of think of it, like you had a little visit from, someone who was just checking in.
Just trying to say hi, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really good kind of segue because I think, my first story that I was going to tell was also kind of a little bit of a family story too.
Okay.
Which was like, so I want to thank you for sharing that too. And just because of
Yeah.
that personal connection to it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So my very first experience, I actually don't even remember.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is actually a story that happened to me as a child, as told to me by my grandmother.
Okay.
So in probably 94,
Okay.
I was probably like 2 or 3 years old,
Hmm.
and my uncle had just passed away. It was my dad's brother, so he passed away, just complications with HIV. And so
Oh,
it
wow.
was, it was,
Mhm.
I like have vague memories of him.
Yeah.
But like this one cute story that I was causing trouble at my other uncle's wedding.
Yeah.
And when I was being escorted out of the venue, I was screaming for him. Maybe I thought he was going to save me from getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I must have really took them as a kid. But
Oh, yeah.
so I think this happened. It was either like the day of the funeral or like the following day. We were having um, lunch at like his wife's place,
Okay.
and we were kind of sitting around the dinner table, eating. I like excuse myself, and I go to sit over on the couch.
Okay.
And then my grandfather comes over and he says, hey Steve, can I sit next to you? And I said, no, I'm sitting next to Uncle Andrew. And the way my grandma tells it, it was like the whole room just got quiet,
Yeah.
and they were like, he's with us, he's saying goodbye. It was actually it's very sweet and touching but a little
Yeah.
creepy when the kid of the house was like,
The
I'm sitting next to
kid.
the person that just died.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
But like, it's
Aw.
creepy, but it's sweet. Like, I always think it's like, maybe I was the last person to see him. And like, because we hear stories all the time that kids and babies that
Oh,
have
they're
like,
so sensitive.
they're super sensitive, they can kind
Yeah.
of see what we don't see, maybe,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
you know and I know there's a lot of theories behind that too, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's a new soul, so they're super connected to the spiritual, or
Yeah.
I've heard so many.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I remember, like, I don't know, I wasn't creeped out when my grandmother first told me that story. I got a little
Yeah.
creeped out as I was thinking about it more and more, but like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think it's just because it was because it was a family member. So I don't think it, like, if I was just like, yeah, Georgie that lives in the basement, like,
Yeah,
that
it
was,
could have been way scarier. Yeah, no,
it could have been
for
way
sure,
scarier.
for sure. Or like when kids point out, like that, like they say stuff like somebody who doesn't have eyes, or like one of those
Yeah.
like really far fetched. You're
It's like
like,
the creepiest
we
shit.
have to burn this house down right now.
I know. So
Yeah,
thankfully it wasn't like
yeah,
that bad.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that's the first one. I don't remember that one. But then I have a few. I don't know how you want to. Do you want to go back and forth and just kind of swap until we run out of stories?
We can. Yeah, I only have I think two more.
uh, Perfect.
Is that good? Okay,
That's
yeah, then
perfect.
we could totally do it that way. Yeah. Um, yeah, so my second one is not as comforting. I mean, I guess it was kind of cute, but it wasn't like it definitely was like a family thing. So Mike and I, and Melinda, his wife, my best friend, we went to do the ghost tour in Atlanta, which takes you through Midtown by like the Fox Theater and like all these historical places. And hotel that burned down and like all these things. And so you start like, you go, it's when like you go right before dusk and you start on like one side of the street and you go down and they talk about, you know, blah, this happened here and blah, blah, blah. And then you go and you turn around and you come back up the opposite side. And by the time you come back up, it's nighttime, you know? And Mike, I think, talks about this in the video that we did, because he has like a much better memory about stuff like that than I do. But we hadn't been on the tour very long, but we had gotten to like this little house that was like in the middle of this like more like urban kind of surroundings, like one of those things you see where it's like the last house that just won't give up and like there's, you know, like skyscrapers like all around it. And it was on like this concrete slab, like on the outside there was like a little bit of a porch, but it was concrete and had a couple of stairs that went down. It wasn't anything fancy, it was just like a little house, but you couldn't go in, and it had like metal bars on the outside of the windows, keep people from breaking in, and you know, because it's vacant. And so Mike goes up to the door with his camera and he's like taking pictures inside the house and around the outside of the house. And I'm sort of listening to what the lady's saying, but not really. And I'm like, and by the time I realize it, I'm like the only person standing in front of this house at this point. Everyone else has moved on. And I'm just getting ready to like walk away. And I feel this like tug on my jean pocket. And I think for a second, I was like, somebody's got to be messing with me, like behind me, but there like wasn't anybody. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm just like freaking myself out, you know? But it reminded me, and this was my first thought before the next part that I'm going to share, but like my first thought was it felt like a kid, like tugging on like mom's shirt or something.
Just trying to get your attention.
Yeah, like just like, hey, you know, I'm right here. And I thought that was strange, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't remember what the lady said or anything. So I was like, okay. So I walked down and I like went up to Mike, and Mike's like going through the pictures. I can't remember if I said something to him or not. I might have, but he's like going through the pictures he took. And he was like, holy cow, like, look at this picture. And he had taken a picture inside the door. And in the picture, there's like this outline of a little boy, or what I assumed was a little boy. And like, so I was like, I used to like get chills like even talking about it. But I was like, I didn't make myself feel that really happened. And so that was when I think I was like, that must have been what it was. Like, it definitely felt like a child just trying to be like, hey, you know. And I remember being freaked out at first. And then the more that I thought about it, I just kind of felt really sad, because like the thought of a child, like having to live in this limbo and see all these people go by. And I don't know, like, then it just turned into like, I just felt really sad.
Yeah.
And then actually I just realized I technically have two others, but I have one that's connected to the same walk.
Okay. Yeah.
So you want me to tell that one now, or you want me to wait?
Oh, if it's connected, yeah, keep it going. Yeah. I'm invested right now.
Okay. So we go down and we're doing the loop, and we're coming back up, and there's like no sun, and everything is scary because we're like, well, you know, there's homeless people everywhere, and there's like people are starting to get loud and rambunctious, and nightlife is happening, right? And so like we're coming up the other side, and we come up to this giant building, and it's got like it doesn't have any signs on the outside, but it has like a dirt parking lot, and then there's like an entry to the building, and you're not allowed to go in. It's like super dangerous. Aside from the fact there could be somebody in there and you don't know what state they'll be in, it's like just structurally it's risky, you know. Mm-hmm. And so we go, Mike and I go up to the door, and Mike's doing his thing, he's taking pictures, and we're talking, and we're standing it like kind of in a row in front of this door. And we don't really know a lot about the building, other than it was like a couple of different things. But one of the things it was a hospital. And of course, that automatically means backdoor abortion stuff. Yes. And like, you know, it automatically means all these crazy things. And so we're standing in front of this door, and almost like it was planned, at the exact same time, we both took 2 giant steps backwards, and we had tears in our eyes.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of like look at each other, like kind of disoriented, like what just happened? And we both described it as, it just felt like we were too close and we needed to move away. Like it literally felt like there was this pressure, like a wall that I was too close to, that I needed to put space in between myself and this building. And so I was like, yeah, I don't like that. I'm gonna go.
Did you feel like an immediate mood change? Like,
yeah, and I think I felt sadness. If I had to describe it, it just felt overwhelmingly sad or depressing and kind of empty, I think. but it also was like, it almost felt like, without sounding dramatic, it also kind of felt like a warning. Like it just felt like we were too close. Like something was like, you need to back up. Like it was a
Yeah.
very strange, like range of emotions. And so I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to go up to so Melinda is standing, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 feet away from us, and she's in the dirt parking lot, and she's just kind of looking up. And I don't think that's weird at first, but then I'm like talking to her and I'm calling her name and I'm saying, hey, and I'm like trying to tell her about this weird thing that just happened. And she's like looking up at this window, which is so creepy, like, because
Oh, just
everything is
staring.
dark. It's like, yeah, it's like you can't see anything, and I'm scared to look in case there's something standing up there. Like, and so as a horror fan, I'm a big chicken. Like, not of movies, but of like real life
Like
situations.
real things going down. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so so I go up and I said her name, I don't even know how many times. And finally she kind of like snapped out of it a little bit. And when she kind of jerked her head and she looked at me, she literally had tears like streaming down her face, and she never heard me call her name, not once.
Wow.
And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "I don't know, that was so strange. I was just trying to look at the building and I didn't even hear you come up, and it was very strange." And I think it just, whatever was going on in that building, whatever happened in that building, whatever left behind, like it was just and we all felt it. No one else from the group got that close to the building. It was just us. And so it was one of the craziest things that like I think like it was just such an odd thing that we all felt it at almost pretty much the same time.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if you asked like other people that took that tour, like what their experiences could have been, like if it had a very similar effect on others.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting too that like no one else was comfortable to even get that close. Like no one. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
like maybe there was already like a feeling around the building, even like before you got to that like dirt parking lot or whatever.
Yeah. I just had a haunting aura.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I had one that has kind of similar to yours. It's got like a string of a couple. I think it's
Okay.
got like I have like 3 or 4 interconnected ones.
Okay.
There are a bunch of So when I was in high school, I took photography as one of my electives.
Okay.
And it was awesome. I loved it. It was like one of my favorite classes.
Yeah.
And it was like old school photography. We were shooting on film, going into a dark room, developing the
Oh,
photos.
that's
Like
awesome. Yeah.
it was cool.
Yeah.
And so one of our early assignments was we had to take like a series of photos at like different aperture settings, like
Okay.
fool around with focus, fool around with light exposure, whatever.
Yeah.
So I asked my brother if he wanted to be like a subject for me. And so I had him like sit in a chair. He sat down and I took like a few photos, each at like a slightly different setting.
Yeah.
So I do that. I take a bunch of photos. I go back to school the next day. I develop the negatives
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed something on the negatives of my brother. So I'm like, I don't know what this is. Was there like something faulty? Because it was like some of my first like development, like some of my
Yeah.
first sets of photos. So I was like, did I screw it up? Like what, whatever. So I blow up all 3. And I develop them, and in the photo, and I wish I could have scanned it. See, I don't have the photos anymore
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was old school developing. So I don't know what happened to
Yeah.
the negatives, whatever.
Yeah. Right.
But you could see, and I swear, you could see the silhouette of a woman walking across the 3 pictures that I took.
Okay.
Because it was like, it wasn't just like one photo was wrong. It was like
Several.
it was several photos, and in each one was slightly different. Like she was moving across the frame. So it was like in the first one, she was like dead center, and it honestly looked like a ghost bride.
Okay.
It was like the profile of a woman. You
Right.
could see the forehead, the nose, like all of that, and you could see like the train going. Like it was very like it wasn't so explicit, but it was just like silhouette. It was almost like a white silhouette.
Yeah. Enough to
Um,
tell like what you're looking at.
right.
Right.
And it was just so creepy that like by the third photo, it was just like the edge of the train.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really, really creepy. And I was like developing, and I was just like asking people, like, I asked my teacher, what do you see in these photos? Asked my classmates, like, what do you see in these photos? And they were all like, holy shit, like that's a lot.
That's
And so those photos actually hung up in that classroom for like 2 years.
oh, that's cool.
And
Yeah.
then I thought, so like, well, this was, I mean, Facebook maybe was just a thing. But
Yeah.
no one was thinking like, oh shit, I had to put this in a scanner and digitize it. Like we were
No,
like, oh,
yeah.
and we were just like, because we weren't sharing things on social media like that.
Yeah. No, you just think like, well, I have the picture, that's enough. Like you don't
Yeah.
think, yeah.
And little did I know that, yeah. So I don't know what happened to them. I think either the janitor like threw out all the photos or something happened. So
Yeah.
anyway, so it spurred this whole investigation set of mine that I had. So I'm
I
like,
can see that. Yeah.
so I'm trying to figure out like what's going on with the house. I'm like trying to find, like, I went to the library to look at like old photos of the neighborhood. I didn't really know much about original owners. The house was
Yeah.
built in like the 30s, so I know it
Hmm.
was like one of like the original houses in that little like in that area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I think there was like originally farmland in like
Right.
the Great Depression era kind of.
Yeah.
Um, so but I don't know. So I was just making assumptions at that point.
Right.
But so kind of in kind of as I'm looking into stuff, I started noticing a lot of like weird things kind of
Okay.
happening. So I'm like at my computer doing something for school, and the only way I can describe it was
Mhm.
see the shower scene in The Grudge. So I swear I felt like a
I don't
hand.
like that.
I felt a hand kind of brushing up my hair, like as if like something, and I freaked out. I like spun around. I like stood like it didn't feel just like your hair's on edge and like
Just like a brisk, like, yeah, 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 yeah. No,
no,
it's like a
like
full on.
it was a full on like I felt fingers in my hair. It was
Ugh, ugh.
I yeah. So almost not 20 years, like 15 years later or so, like I am still like it actually haunts me. I've never had anything quite that close to me
That's like,
happen
yeah,
since
that's a
then.
lot.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So that kind of scarred me. And then I can't remember because it all kind of starts to blur.
Yeah,
So
sure.
like it was either the same night or like another night like within that week.
Yeah.
I'm like in my kitchen, and my family had just kind of like renovated the kitchen. They like put in an island. It was like totally all different space.
Yeah.
And I leave the kitchen, and at that point we had the computer in kind of like a little tile area, kind of next to the kitchen, kind of off.
Okay.
Like you can't like if you're sitting at the computer, you can't like like look into the kitchen, but you can kind of see like had like the step getting into the kitchen. It was like a little
Sure.
raised area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so like I leave the kitchen, I go, and I'm like, oh, I forget something. I go back into the kitchen, and one of the drawers is wide open, just wide open. I know I didn't go in there. I wasn't looking for utensils
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever
It
was in
just,
there.
yeah.
It was just open. And I was like, okay, close it, go to bed. I'm getting out of that little area. So it was either because it's such a book. It was like again, like I'm talking almost 15 years ago now. Um,
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was the same night or like that week, but
Yeah.
so that happened, and I remember similarly, I'm upstairs reading in bed. I forget what I was. I was reading. I don't remember what I was reading, but I just hear music. I hear music, and so it was like kind of an old. The house is like it's a colonial, but it's kind of a smaller colonial.
Okay.
So the steps right, walk through the front door, steps right up there. So there's 3 bedrooms, and then
Hmm.
at the end of the hallway is my bedroom, and it's a sunken bedroom, so you have to kind of go down like a couple of
Okay.
steps to get it.
Yeah.
So at the top of those 2 stairs, before you go into my bedroom, you look up, and there's like a like a push. There's like a square, like a little cutout that you could push up, and you can go. There's like a crawl space up there.
I really
So
don't like that.
it's not like a proper attic.
I'm like, where are you going with this? That you're telling me about this specific thing?
I know. Well, here's the creepy thing. I heard music playing from up there. I did not go in there. I'll let you know, I did
You're
not go
not
in
one
there.
of those.
No. I did not go investigating. I did not get my flashlight and put my head up there, and who knows.
Take your camera phone and like, or I don't know, I guess maybe not back then.
But something that I didn't know that I found out, because this is all happening while I'm like trying to figure out like who this ghost bride is in my
Mhm.
house. My mom tells me in the crawl space where I heard the music, the same kind of time frame, that's where she keeps her wedding dress. So my mom keeps her wedding dress up there. It's just like a weird coincidence.
Yeah, enough to make you go, oh, like,
I'm like, "Hey, Mom, is there another place you could store your wedding dress? I don't know, like if it's like bringing out this ghost bride's energy or something
like
happening."
you even stirred something up, Mom.
Oh boy, I don't know. And this is all happening like in like the span of like a couple of months, right? So
Yeah,
it like all just kind of like started. And
yeah.
so my friends and I, so there's a couple of girls I was friends with in high school, and we were like kind of like the weird ones. We were like, maybe we're gonna be Wiccan this week, you know,
Yeah.
like we just do shit like that.
Yeah.
And we're like, why don't we do a Ouija board? Okay, so I know that
Mm.
bad things usually start with that, but we were like,
Yeah.
okay, but we're not gonna be stupid. We're gonna be smart about it. So we essentially like Googled the equivalent of like Wiccan for dummies, and like figured like we were like, okay, if we're gonna let's just I don't know if I buy all this, but we're gonna try it. So we did like a protection circle. We did like candles, and like we did it on in my friend's backyard on like her little um kind of gazebo. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a gazebo, but
Yeah.
it's like not like fully enclosed.
Sure.
And so we kind of did it at that table, and we set up candles in like a north, south, east, west kind of situation.
Yeah.
We did the salt and everything. So we're doing it. We're doing the Ouija board, asking questions. We're asking
Mhm.
like, if anyone out there knew who the ghost bride. I don't know what we decided. We decided not to do it at my house for some reason, even though that's the ghost we were investigating. So I don't know what we were thinking.
Maybe you were too worried it was gonna like stir up some more stuff and you'd have to
Maybe.
live there.
So we're asking questions, but nothing happens. But we hear we hear the candles popping.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
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 And meanwhile, they're not like those like popping candles, like the candles that purposefully like flicker and make noise, and
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. They usually have like a wood wick.
Yes.
So they were just like regular candles, but they were like popping. I mean, it's dark, so we couldn't quite tell. We turned the backyard lights off and everything. So we're like, all right, this isn't getting anywhere. Ouija board's it's not moving. So we like say goodbye on the Ouija board. We're like, just to be safe.
It's super important. Yes.
Yes. And we turn on the backyard lights, and we see burn marks around, like little like the salt burnt up a little bit around, like little spots around the circle, like almost as if like something was trying to
And
like
couldn't.
get into the circle, because so we like did a Ouija board in a protective circle, and just like it was weird. It was like, I guess it is counterproductive, right? If you're trying to get something to communicate, but you set up something, a perimeter, it's not going to get in. So, but that's what ended. So whatever. But then we saw like the burn marks. We're like, oh shit! Like, was something like trying to actually, but couldn't because we did the circle thing? We were like, I don't know. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, because I think it's just general protection. It's not like, oh, it'll let the good in, but not the bad. Like I think it's just from everything. I don't think
Right.
it's like so it wouldn't be like anything good could come through anyway, and it only keeps out like things that are malicious. Like it would be, kind of everything. So
To catch all. So we weren't really thinking it through. So that was also, but then after that, everything kind of just stopped
Oh,
at it was like kind of reminds me of in Poltergeist, like all this could just stop at any
just
moment.
ceased. Yeah.
It just stopped. So it was very weird, and that was all kind of like it was either my sophomore or junior year of high school.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was my sophomore year of high school, actually. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. And then it just nothing ever since.
Weird.
I know, I know.
Were you like going through anything when you were like was there like any type of like turmoil or like anything that would have added like a sense of vulnerability? You know what I mean? Like,
Trying to think in like 10th grade. I don't know. Like I had
yeah.
already. I mean, like so as a gay person, I mean, I was kind of half in and half out of the closet. So like I was always
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like
Yeah.
stressed out about like who knew I was gay, who didn't know I
Oh,
was
right.
gay.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like I would say from like
Maybe, yeah.
7th grade until like I really kind of fully came out in like senior year college to
Okay.
everybody, I was always stressed out. I always had a lot of anxiety growing
Yeah,
up.
yeah. No, I yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Um, a little bit of depression, but not really, you know?
I was just curious because, like sometimes that stuff makes you more susceptible, supposedly, too, if like you're going through a lot or like, there's just like this energy around you in general. And it kind of like, you know,
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? Actually, that just reminded me that was not that wasn't the end of, that was the end of Ghost Bride situation. There was something that happened my senior year. I don't think it was necessarily, it might not be paranormal. I could have had a stalker. I don't know.
in your house. Well, you go ahead, you tell me and then I'll.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Okay. Well, I already teed it up, so I should just say it. And then we'll go to your story. So I'm just like, this just turned into Steve's TED talk on paranormal experiences. Um,
It's your show. You do whatever you want. Those are the rules, right? I definitely do whatever I want.
exactly, exactly.
So,
Um, so my senior year,
mhm.
I worked part time at a pet supply store.
Okay.
It was like family owned. I had gone to elementary school with
Mhm.
the owner's daughter. She kind of went to
Yeah.
private Catholic school after that, so we didn't stay connected.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew the mom, and she trusted me, and so she hired me to work kind of cashier and stock. It was kind of like it was such a small business that only really one person worked at a time. So
Yeah.
I would be alone in the store.
Yeah.
And I remember closing up the cash register, doing whatever the closing procedures were, locking, sweeping, locking things up, turn off the lights, and I could like feel something at the back of the store.
Yeah.
Um, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, but I
Mhm.
could feel something. I could just feel that something was there.
Yeah.
It didn't feel foreboding. It didn't feel negative in any way. It
Sure.
just like I wasn't alone.
Sure.
Um, and so okay, whatever. I brush it off. I leave. I come back probably during my next shift. I don't know if it was the next day or whatever my next shift was.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the topic of the paranormal came up, but I'm
Mhm.
talking to the owner, and she was like, "Oh, my friend came to the store um, since last time you were here." And she said that she was just talking. She's like, apparently the psychic told her that there's something in the store
Mhm.
and they're attracted to me.
Wait,
Like
her friend was the psychic?
her
That's
friend
what.
was the psychic.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Was I guess went to the store, visited her. They were
And
whatever.
just was getting some okay,
We're just
gotcha.
getting
Okay.
some vibes from the store.
Sure.
Told her that there was a spirit there, and then so my boss relays this to me and says that the psychic said that there's a spirit there, and
Mhm.
that they're somehow drawn to me, like me. I'm like, this is a little scary to tell somebody. You're going to tell
Yeah,
me
y'all leave me here by myself all the time. You telling me
I'm
this?
like, what am I supposed to do with this information?
Quit, put in your resignation.
I can tell you, I really wasn't there much longer after that. Not because of that specifically, but yeah. So that happened. So I never experienced anything inside the store. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
But I parked across the street. It was a parking lot kind of attached to a church.
Okay.
But it was communal and anyone could park there. So I would park there and walk across to the pet shop.
Okay. Yeah.
So I go to my car and I go home and I realize I lost my key lanyard. So I had this like high school class of 2009 key lanyard that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't lose any keys. It must have popped
Just
off
that
the keychain.
piece. Yeah.
So it was just the lanyard piece.
Yeah.
So whatever. I go home. I realize I was like, oh, whatever. So my next time I go to my shift, I look in the parking lot, I look in the grass. I don't find it. I go home after school the next day. It's hanging on my front doorknob. I don't know how it got there. And there was no identifying information on it other than it said my high school name, class of 2009. So the guess was 1 out of 100 people.
Yeah.
How could they have known?
That's weird.
Yeah. I don't think my boss knew where I lived. Like I was paid in cash. Like it really wasn't like
one of those kind of like yeah.
She wouldn't have had my address on file. It was kind of an off the books kind of thing.
Yeah. So how far did you live? You may have said this already. How far did you live from?
8-10 minutes.
Okay, so driving distance, not walking distance. That's
not walking.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was just hanging on the front door of my house. My mom, I would have loved to have had a ring at that year.
No kidding. What would you have done if you checked it and you just saw your lanyard like floating up to your door?
It's like dragging along the sidewalk.
Oh my god!
Pops up. I would have moved.
Burn the house down. That's my answer for all things that have to do with the weird. Like burn it down.
Burn it down. Mom, Dad, brother, let's go.
I don't have time to explain. Outside.
No, I don't. Yeah, and I asked my mom. I was like, "Do you know who dropped this off?" And no idea.
She had no idea.
No idea. So, and that happened a couple of years after all that Ghost Bride stuff.
The other stuff, yeah. So it's probably not related. Yeah,
probably not related.
It may be related to the store, though. I mean, that stuff can move. Usually.
Oh gosh. Well, I haven't. I've been in my current house for 7 years. haven't experienced a single thing, and I don't intend to. Knocking on all the wood.
Yeah. Mike came by to look at something before I got this house, and I was like, did you feel anything when you were in there? I need to know before we close this deal.
Yeah.
If you saw some crazy shit or somebody died, I need you to tell me right now.
Please, are there disclosure laws? Something?
I need a heads up. I was like, he said, I went into the attic. I said, was there anything up there? Attics terrify me. I don't do attics. I still to this day, so I've lived in this house for almost 3 years. I've never been in the attic. I don't do it.
Yeah.
Attics are terrifying.
Attics are creepy. We don't have a full attic. We have one of those drop down ladders.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, and you have to climb up to it. You can't really stand in it. It's
ours you have to hunch, kind of hunch, and you have to be really careful where you walk. It's not super safe.
Yeah. No, it's not. Definitely you can't. Yeah, because it's pretty much just planks of wood are the floor.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how ours is too. It's been described to me because, as I said, I don't go up there, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing though.
I know. Yeah. Nope. And then sometimes we'll get mice that'll come up there. Not so much anymore. In the beginning, when we first got the place, we used to have to set up traps, and my husband would send me up to get the mice.
I don't do attics. I've seen enough movies. I don't.
Nothing good ever happens in an attic.
Literally nothing. I've never seen. Nope.
No. I mean, has an attic ever been good in any movie you've ever seen?
Literally no. And as we're saying this, I'm thinking of at least 10 movies in my head where there's scenes in the attic that are not good.
I mean, I'm like Black Christmas. Don't they go
Paranormal Activity? She finds that damn picture. in the attic. Host, there's an attic scene. The
Mm-hmm.
Grudge,
The Grudge.
Quarantine, there's an attic thing. Mm-mm.
Yep. Attics and basements.
It is always the highest and the lowest.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, it can't just be, well, yeah. You know what? Better keep it to those two places and then than the entire house. And I
We
can't
just don't. We just won't go in those areas. We're safe as long as we stay in the main parts of the
I
house.
know. We're lucky we actually don't have a basement. This is technically the basement, but we live at a split level house.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's really just the lower level. It's not really
So
like
that's pretty much what this is too. The main level is technically upstairs, but this is like,
yeah, we're
it's
like half underground right now. Like, because the garage is back here.
uh-huh.
And then like this wall is like partially underground, and then like over there is kind of underground. So we're like cut into a hell.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah. So, all right, I have one more story. So I'm going to give it to you because I don't want to
Okay.
mess with the flow.
Yeah, that's good. So this is my last one. And this one kind of ties into why I was asking about like if you had some stuff going on when you had like the ghost bride stuff.
Right.
So when I first moved up here to Atlanta, I lived with Melinda and Mike. I became their roommate. And we lived in this house. It's like just a normal, like there wasn't really a lot going on with it. I think it was built in like the 80s. But it was like this 2-story house, and I had like a bed, obviously like my own bedroom or whatever. And
Yeah.
at the time that this happened, Melinda and I went to school together, we worked together, and we lived together. So after a while, I think we kind of got sick of each other and we needed like a break. So our friendship was kind of like struggling at this point. And there was a lot of other things going on relationship wise with myself. And just there was just a lot of really negative, not so great things going on at this point.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I had my dog. His name was Josh. I had him. He passed away last February, but he was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's like my everything. I had him for almost 11 years. Almost 11 years.
Wow.
So he was still pretty young. He's in his prime when we first moved up here. And he's like laying on my bed and I'm in my room. And I think at this time, either Mike and Melinda were both home and they were maybe. I think at this time, Mike and Melinda, if they were home, they must have already been in bed or they might not have been there, but I think it was pretty late. So I think they were in bed. And so they're in bed and I'm like the only one up because I'm working nights at a restaurant. So I'm like up really late. And I'm Snapchatting a friend of mine. And this is before you could replay Snapchats or anything. It was that like they're gone,
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, so we're like Snapchatting, but the way that my bed was going out like this, and to my right is the door to the bedroom, and then directly outside the bedroom is the rail for the steps that go down to the lower level of the house. And it's dark in the hallway. My lights are on in my room, and I'm watching something on TV. My dog's laying with me, and I'm just like Snapchatting and doing nothing. It's like 3 a.m. or something. And I take a picture or a Snapchat. And I'm kind of leaning out enough so that you can see me and then you can see the railing behind me that leads to the stair or that's connected to the stairs. And I look down and I'm typing on the message or whatever on the picture. And just as I hit send, I see something in the picture that like is super unsettling to me, but I can't get the picture back. And so I like immediately text the person that I'm Snapchatting and I was like, hey, did you notice anything weird in that picture? And she was like, no, I didn't notice anything. She's not looking for it. So it's like, but what I had seen was above the rails, not like I didn't see like there was nothing standing, but there was like a face floating like over the stair rails looking into my bedroom.
Oh, wow.
And about the same time that I realized this, my dog gets up and pushes his shoulders back and lowers his head and starts like growling.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah, you sensed it.
yeah, and so and for the thing, what I remember is it just kind of looked like a white face with like no facial features really, but it was just specific enough that I could tell it was a face.
Right,
And I was like super uncomfortable. It took me a really long time to go to bed that night, needless to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout like the next, couple of weeks, I'd been hearing like sudden voices or something that were really quiet. And you just think like it's probably a TV upstairs. Or those kind of things are really easy to dismiss.
Yeah.
And so like fast forward like another week or so, and things are kind of getting better in the house as far as the energy. You know, Melinda and I are doing better. We're not so sick of each other. Like things are just kind of getting better. And she tells me about this experience that she had a couple of nights after my experience, where she woke up in the middle of the night and almost felt like the way she described it, it kind of reminded me of like sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
she's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but she's never had that before. That's never happened before. But I never told her because we weren't really speaking at the time. I never told her what I saw. I didn't tell her or Mike. I didn't tell anybody.
Hmm.
And so she's telling me, she was like, God, when I was sick a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, she said, I don't know if it was like maybe the NyQuil or something that I took. She was like, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt like frozen in fear. And she said that she looked up at the foot of her bed and saw, and what she described was the exact same thing that I saw. It was just a face with no facial features. And it's just like moving at the foot of her bed, like across like this. And then when it got to the end of the bed, it was gone.
Wow.
And I was like, I had like tears in my eyes, like, when you get like really, oh my God. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
and I told her, I was like, I was like, Melinda, that's the exact same thing that I saw. Like the same week that she experienced this, I had my experience. And I just like, it was really uncomfortable for like a while, but then we never had anything else happen. We never saw anything or heard anything else. And so I kind of just thought that it was like a physical manifestation of like our own energy. Like I don't necessarily believe that it was like a spirit or an entity or anything like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
our like emotional stuff was so intense and we all lived in the same space that it just turned into something physical. Like it just was like, here's this
Yeah.
physical thing. And it's really bizarre that Melinda and I were the ones that were having the issues and we were the two that had the experiences.
Well, right, because it's just whatever energy the two of you were putting out just seemed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create this thing. Um, is that why you mentioned the? So I remember us talking as we were kind of getting
Yeah.
prior to this, we were kind of texting back and forth, just and you asked me that question about manifestation, right?
Yeah.
Is that where that kind of was rooted in?
So kind of, but also I was watching Slender Man
Oh,
and
that's right. That's right.
and so there's this like there's a name for the theory, but I can't remember. I can never remember what it's called. But they talk about it all the time on paranormal shows that I watch, specifically Paranormal Caught on Tape, which is like trash TV with ghosts. I love it. And it's but they this concept that if you believe in something or if you put enough fear out there, you can create something physical is the
Yeah.
idea. And they've used that in Slender Man stories before, where
Okay.
it's like, oh yeah, like Slender Man wasn't real, but now he's real because we all are scared of him, basically.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was why I asked, because I was watching Slender Man, which if you
That's
get an
right.
opportunity, just pass on that. But yeah,
Oh,
that was why. But I have often thought that that's what the thing was that we saw was just this physical thing that we created with our own emotions and mental state.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always curious, because I don't know if I ever mentioned because I've only done movie reviews. And this is the first conversational thing. So anyone who's watched my videos, unless they know me personally, they don't know that I'm like a therapist. Um,
Right. Right.
so certainly like there's something to be said with group think and like
Yes.
mass hysteria and like certain
Yes.
influences like that.
Yeah.
But as far as like legitimately manifesting something, it's interesting, right? Like I think of
Yeah.
like mass hallucination or if it's a real physical thing.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting theories out there.
Yeah. And I think with that one, I don't think I so much believe like if I believe in Slender Man, he's gonna like show up and kill me. I don't believe that. But I believe that we can manifest things that are, knocks or things that don't make sense or hearing things sometimes. Like I think our brains are just very powerful things.
Oh
And
yeah,
I think that when we are in vulnerable or, vulnerable states, overly heightened emotional states, like I think all of that plays into what can happen in your surroundings. It's like, mind over matter kind of thing.
absolutely not. I
Yeah.
think you're onto something. I
That's
think
just my professional opinion. Like,
oh wow. So my last story, because I want to get to this before we get to
yeah. Oh yeah.
just theories and just kind of
Yeah.
wrapping that up. I do have an Amityville horror story.
That's right. This is the
Um,
one I've been excited to hear. Not
it's
that
not,
I love all of them. This was one I was like, ooh, you know.
yeah, well, because it's such a famous location. So
Yeah.
well, I told you, but for the viewers, so I grew up on Long Island. So
Right.
it was maybe 20-25 minutes away from my house.
Right.
So if you're a Long Islander, I mean, if you're not a Long Islander, you know the Amityville Horror House. You know the story. Ronald DeFeo killed his family in the 70s. The Lutz family moved in, and like 30 something days later, or whatever it was, 20 something days, they were out. And there's been
Right.
books
Right. It
and
wasn't
movies
right. Yep.
and all that. So yeah, I mean, when you're a teen and or your early 20s and you live on Long Island, rite of passage is you drive by the Amityville Horror House.
And go check it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think what we kind of, me and my friend, we kind of made a night of it because we had actually went to Amityville to see a band play at Ye Old Record Shop, where you could buy CDs and stuff. It probably doesn't exist anymore.
Ye old.
So we go and see this band play, and we're like, all right, cool. So now, the sun sets. Let's head over to 112 Ocean Avenue. So we drive down, and we park outside, and we're just kind of like looking. We're like, okay, yeah. So there's the windows. They remodeled the windows, so they're not.
They don't look like they used to.
Yeah, they're not like the half circle windows anymore. They're just square windows.
Okay.
So I guess that's one of the most popular, like one of the more like noticeable features of the house.
Right. Yes.
So because I know the town has a lot of issues with people coming and just like parking out there and all the ruckus. So
they don't like that. Yeah.
They remodeled the house a little bit, but you could still sell the house. And we're like, oh yeah, so there's the windows, there's like the boathouse in the back, whatever. Nothing happens at the house. Okay. We leave Ocean Avenue, and as soon as we turn, we get into a car accident. Thank God we're okay. But immediately turning off of Ocean Avenue after visiting the house, we get rear-ended. And the car is like totaled. She had to get a new car. Thank God we were okay.
Yeah, because
we were hit hard. And we're like, okay. Like before after we've had a second to process what happened.
Yeah, it's probably pretty jarring. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're just like, wow, like what a crazy we were talking about what a crazy coincidence. Yeah, it's like the bad luck just followed us. It was like, yeah, haha, you came to see something, boom, right? Now you don't have a car anymore. I felt bad. It was her car. I felt so bad. But yeah, so I've been to, but the funny thing is I've been to the house since then, and it hasn't happened. But so it was either just some freaky,
really crazy,
or just I don't know. But I'll have to show you because I also took my mom's cousin to see it when he came to visit, and I have my famous Instagram photo that I show everybody.
Yeah. Well, and car accidents is actually a pretty common thing that happens to people leaving haunted houses. That's actually really common. There's this documentary called what's it called? Demon House? Yes. Demon House. It's called Demon House. It's Zach Bagans. I know. He's the worst. But it's Zach Bagans, and he is more money than sense. So he bought this haunted house that had all these stories about it and all these crazy things that happened to people when they went there. And I will tell you, if the footage is fake, it's really still scary. But if it's not fake, it's terrifying. Because some of the stuff he captures is not like the stuff that they catch on the other, because I watch Ghost Adventures. I love Ghost Adventures. Yeah. And it's not that what was that? Oh my God, it's colder. It was scary stuff, the stuff that he captured. Definitely recommend watching it. It was actually really well done. And there's still a little bit of the cheese in it because it's Zach Bagans, but otherwise it was really well done. And there's, but I say all that to say, there was multiple accounts of people who had been in that house leaving it and getting into very bad car accidents.
Wow.
And it was more than one. And I've heard that about other haunted locations as well, that people go visit. Most of the time it's people who have been inside them, I think. But either way, like that is kind of a, I don't want to say like a common phenomenon, but also kind of, because it is known to happen to people who
Wow.
leave haunted locations. Like they go and they get in their car and something bad happens. Like it's, so.
Wow. I see. I had no idea
Yeah.
of that kind of statistic, or like that,
Yeah.
that
It's kind of
reporting.
interesting.
So thank you for like kind of clearing up this like 10-year-old mystery.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just interesting because I mean, you hear people talk about like attachments and the ability for things to move and travel. And I don't think you could, I don't think there's any definitive way to like rule it out, like it's always going to be that it could be a possibility.
Yeah. Which is the fun of talking about this, right? It's like,
Yeah.
which kind of
Yeah.
leads us into like the theories side of things,
Yeah.
right? Like, I feel like I do always kind of come from it from a skeptical perspective,
Okay.
and I say that not because I guess it's like the X-Files cliche, right? I want to believe, right?
Yes. Right.
It's
Yeah,
like
sure.
prove me wrong, right? Like I want to come in not believing, prove me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I certainly am. I feel like, well, I think I'm more open to it than the average skeptic. So I will say that.
Okay.
So like my spiritual background, I was raised Roman Catholic. I don't practice other than the commercial holidays,
Yeah.
Christmas
Yeah.
and whatever,
Yeah.
presents and
Sure.
candy. I'm good. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't really have like a religious spiritual background.
Sure.
But then, like, I hear these stories. I
Mhm.
have, my grandma telling me this story about my uncle. I have all this stuff. So I'm like, there's something. There can't be nothing
Yeah.
to the spiritual side of things.
Sure.
And it's all like I've seen, some documentaries. I've seen, I've seen plenty of shows about it all. I've had plenty of conversation.
Mhm.
And the idea is like, I guess, does it come down to, is there an existence of a soul? Like,
Mhm.
are paranormal experiences proof of a soul, right? Or whatever that is, or what is the paranormal? Like, what is a ghost? What is all of this? Um, so I don't know. I my main theory that I've really kind of fallen to love is the time theory, because I feel like it's based in science a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I could almost see it being what it is. Now, the time theory that I'm talking about specifically is the nonlinear existence of time, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
the theory, and I don't know who originated the theory, but I've heard people talk about it. So I should have done my research before this, but I wasn't going to write like a grad level paper before.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You
Um,
can explain the theory and relate it to what we're talking about. I think you're doing better than some. You could.
but yeah, just the theory that nonlinear time time is happening all at once. We as
Yeah.
human beings, as flesh and blood, can only experience time in one way. But paranormal experiences kind of being the wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It's a Doctor
Mm,
Who reference for anyone that watches Doctor Who that's listening to.
right.
So it's like us kind of in kind of brief instances experiencing time in a nonlinear fashion.
Yes.
Where it's like we're kind of getting a glimpse of something that happened around us
Yeah.
in a different time. For example, right? Maybe that boy that you felt tugging at your pocket did that to somebody at that spot
In
many
another,
years ago.
yeah. Yeah.
Curious. I mean, just and one theory, you know. But I want to kind of push it to you because I have other theories that I can go on forever. Just
Yes.
general thoughts, general whatever you're
Yeah.
thinking.
So I've also heard like people so like I know someone in particular that kind of takes what you're talking about and turns it into this like dimensional thing. So there's this theory called like a dimensional, this sounds really like not appropriate for me to say, but I don't know how else to say it. But like a dimensional rub. So like where where like two different things that are not
Mhm.
meant to connect just long enough for there to be an experience. And
Yeah.
that's also used sometimes to talk about things like Bigfoot or Loch Ness or aliens, like all of these things that we experience that aren't just ghost related, but anything preternatural, however you say it, or supernatural, or any of those kinds of things. And so that's one that I've heard about that I think is a definite possibility. I think if you were looking to try to find something that makes more sense than some other things, I will say that I don't really, I have very specific beliefs and then I have very not specific beliefs. So one thing that I don't necessarily believe in is I don't believe in like demonic entities. I believe that
Mhm.
I believe that there's two types of energies, because even though I'm not a religious person, I grew up Southern Baptist. That's probably why I'm not religious. I It's one of those things where like I believe that energy exists. There's too much proof of it, obviously. It exists, but
Mhm.
I believe that there's a good and a bad energy. That's why sometimes you can walk into a room and you feel what everybody else is feeling. Have you ever like had a bad day and gone to work and like everybody's having a shit day? It's
Oh,
so weird how
too
that
often.
works. But it's like all around energy. So like I believe that there is good and bad energy. I just don't believe that they're tied to like religious backgrounds. I don't believe that like a bad energy is a demon that's trying to possess you. Like I just believe that some things are not good.
Yeah.
um, and I think also too, the other thing that I definitively believe is I think that when you have these like I think that there are people who are like, I don't know how I feel specifically about like psychics and stuff like that. I want them to be real, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. So, but I do think that there are people who are susceptible to feeling things. Like Mike in particular is a very is has left himself open to experience things. After we went on our ghost walk, I kind of went through this thing in my head of like blocking myself off. Like, I don't want to know, I don't want to see, I don't want to hear. I just want to live my life and be naive, you know? And I
Yeah.
think there are people who are naturally more open to that. And I think, we talked briefly about like kids being, kind of open to it, and animals. And it has to do with like with children, the theory is, oh well, they're newer spirits or newer souls, so they are slightly more connected to that realm than we are, which
Mhm.
kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I think, but I also think it has a lot to do, or if you were to say that that's exactly what it is, I think too that children and animals are like the most innocent, purest forms of existence. And I think that that plays a lot too, because I think as we grow up, we become these bitter, angry people. And like, we
Yeah.
just view the world through a very different lens, and we don't allow ourselves to think of things that involve any type of magic, whether it's like realistic magic or not realistic magic. Um, but yeah, I think that there is a definite good and bad, and I do think that we are capable of making things happen, as far as not necessarily like levitating something across a counter, but as far as just we create an energy, and then I think it kind of turns into this other thing. And that's why we can affect other people with our energy and our mood, is because it's just kind of like all like, you know, it's a kind of a, I don't know what kind of like way of thinking that would be called, but that's just kind of where I've always felt with it. Because I'd like to think that if we were all just ghosts when we die, we'd have like a really weird ghost population problem. Like, can you imagine like you die and then you're like this, because there's like so
Overpopulation. I love it.
it's like such a silly thing to think about.
Yeah.
But I also believe in like residual energy. I think that we leave impressions behind without meaning to sometimes. And it's like, and it can be something residual that's not what they call like an intelligent haunt, where it's just these things that happen because they happened another time, like kind of tying into what you were talking about with the
Right.
time
Right.
theory. Yeah, so it's kind of my like word vomit of like
I thought it was so beautifully put, though, Angel. Yeah,
yeah,
it's so well put. I mean, definitely the animal and baby thing, right? I think you put it a little more, even a little more eloquently than I. Just like, yeah, like just the purest forms of existing, right? They're not bogged down by
life.
years of training ourselves not to see what we don't want to see. right?
Being
They're
told you can't have an imagination and you can't be open to these things.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Kind of the purest forms of empathy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of it probably has to do with empathy, right?
Yeah. That
Connecting
would
to
make
another
sense.
person's energy. Like you said with Mike, it's like he's left himself kind of open to it.
Yeah.
Um, like psychics, maybe, yeah, like I think you're right. Like I think probably the more believable version of what a psychic could be is just someone who is really empathic and can really feel what's happening in a room
Yeah.
and who's more open. So I think you put that so well. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like everything you said, I'm like, yeah, I get
Like, it's
that.
just so many possibilities, because
Yeah.
I always say, so, like, when Mike and I went to the Bigfoot Museum up here, and we were, like, talking about, like, whether we believe in the concept of Bigfoot or not, like, there's so many beliefs about Bigfoot, like, so many
Mm,
theories, even more than probably ghosts. It's kind of crazy. Um, but I always say, I kind of say, like, sort of like what you said, it's like I always leave myself, I think it would be naive to just assume that there's nothing ever. Like,
right.
none of these things exist. Okay, but why not? Like, why would that be so far out of the realm of possibilities? Because I 100%, people laugh when I say this, but I'm so serious. I absolutely believe in aliens. I don't care. You couldn't pay me to not believe in aliens. It's just too much stuff that we don't know about that I just can't, like,
Yeah.
and I think, and I know people who have had experiences, and like I just feel like that's something that's real. But even aside from that, like I just think that, is Bigfoot real? I don't know. We could be though. And God
You can
knows we
link
have
something out there.
exactly. And well,
Yeah.
and you think about oceans. Oceans are the easiest for me to buy. We know nothing. Like this, we have not even scratched the surface of like exploring our oceans. We don't know what's down there. Nessie could there could be 50 million Nessies. We don't know.
It's true. There are so many undiscovered creatures and species, and
Yeah.
I mean they're discovering new stuff like all the time. They're like this new like subterranean like
I know.
thing that
Yeah.
lights out its ears
I
and
can't.
like
Yeah, I
eating.
know.
Oh man. Oh, anglerfish. Horror. Or not? Is it an anglerfish? Well, I know the ones that
Yes.
have the lights, but then the ones with like the really sharp like knife-like teeth.
Yeah, it's the shit of
Horrifying.
nightmares. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, those things are real. And there's so many things that because they live so deep, that the little bit of depth we've been able to go to, we can't even bring them up because they die from the
Right.
light and the pressure change in the water. And it's like, it's yeah, there's monsters in the water. You could That's gotta be true, because there ain't no way. Bigfoot, I don't know, but definitely water monsters.
There's something down there that we haven't yet.
There's something we have.
And one day they will rise.
And then it's
And
curtains.
we're done. Oh man.
So
It,
true.
it's yeah, I mean I think the dimensional stuff was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
'Cause I know there's a lot of dimensional theory out there.
So many, yeah. Yeah.
So I mean it would make sense that there could be some scientific anomaly that's occurring. Um, Now,
Yeah.
in terms of like intelligent haunts, right? So then an intelligent haunt or something of that nature
Yeah.
would kind of be the opposite of what we're talking about if in terms of like residual energy,
Sure. Yes.
right? Or time or dimensional,
Or
right? Something
something we
like
make ourselves, or
right. So, you know, can those things that we've talked about coexist with something like an intelligent haunt? Is it one thing or the other? What do you think?
I don't know. So this is where it gets gray for me, because I think like I don't know where I fall with energy being something that is like just like so like all science was magic at one point, right? Fire
Mhm.
was magic at one point, and then we learn as we evolve. Well, we think we're evolving, whatever this is. When we
Right.
move forward, it's we learn all of these things that used to sound like like the crazy person in the street that like no one wanted to talk to because they said these crazy things.
Right.
And I think like I truly believe in a number of years, like we will get to that point with paranormal stuff. We'll get to a point where it will be science and we will have answers for some of these things. But I think as far as them, like, I think the idea of intelligent ones, to me, like if I was to say like something happened, I don't know that I believe in like unfinished business per se, but
Mhm.
I do think that there are things around us all the time maybe, and they sometimes choose to show themselves because the belief is of course that it takes a ton of energy, like a ton of energy to do anything. And
Right.
if you're not alive, you have no energy. It's, and that's kind of the point, is like, that's why you see the changes in the readings that they do, or the temperature changes, and like all these things change because they're
Yeah.
trying to get energy from electronics, or whatever. And that actually, I don't have a hard time believing that per se. Like if it was, I believe that that could be a real thing.
Yeah.
But I think that if it's one of those things where, like, I feel like most of the time they just don't really care to like show themselves, because I feel like they have the ability to, they just don't. And I also am like a firm believer that we as human beings, there are things we are not meant to know or understand. But I think, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I fall on the intelligence thing. Um, Nothing that I have experienced is necessarily could be like specifically labeled intelligence, because the room I stayed
Yeah.
in at my grandparents was where my mother's room was when she was growing up. So that could have been a very residual thing.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think, especially because my grandfather died in the house. And then I think, like, obviously I've already explained what I thought about the face, and the other stuff I felt like was probably pretty residual too. Something that had happened at one point that I was just in the right stance at the right moment, or what, however you want to look at it. I don't know. I think, and some of that probably is because I haven't had a ton of experiences, but again, I don't want them. But I don't know. Like, where do you fall in like believing about the intelligence and the coexisting with the residual?
Well, you bring up an interesting. So what kind of was what I was started kind of formulating as you were
Yeah.
talking about the gathering of energy,
Yeah.
right? So if something is residual, right? If someone passes and they
Yeah.
leave behind energy, whether it's positive or negative, and it's
Yeah.
just sitting there,
Yeah.
right? If there's something nearby
Mhm.
that kind of jump starts it,
Yeah.
it may appear to look intelligent when in fact
Yeah.
it's residual,
Yeah.
right? Because if it's something that's just being left behind and it's just responding to something,
Mhm.
like whether it's me starting to put the energy out there to investigate
Yeah.
this woman, and I'm like doing Ouija board stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like looking for it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and I'm thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe it was drawing to me to the point where it was like grabbing my hair,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like trying to hurt me. It was just like maybe just energy reaching out to me because I was feeding it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I think, that's why I love that we're having this conversation, because I feel like I'm kind of taking your ideas and it's like helping me kind of fine tune my
Yeah.
theories, and I hopefully vice versa. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
I think these conversations are always interesting when you
Mhm.
have people that really don't know. I think those are better than like the ones who are one way or the other specific. Like if you're just like a hardcore, like nothing exists, and you're trying to have this conversation, I feel like it's going to be kind of like droll. It's just be like,
Right. You have to
and
come
then
at it from like a pliable like,
yeah, and I
mindset.
think yeah, I mean, and there's a part of me that I'm like, I'm kind of hopeful that there's something good, but the thought of being stuck somewhere kind of sucks. Like the idea that like when we die, like what that's it. Like, like I don't want to watch everyone I love live their life. I'm just hanging out, like it's kind of like a
Well,
sad thought.
that's where things like reincarnation come into play, right? Is that a
That's
thing?
true.
Like
Yeah.
if there's residual energy, is there energy that gets recycled? Is our energy then fed into a tree, fed into the
Yeah.
atmosphere? Are we just constantly like, could we like,
Yeah.
we die and like half our energy is maybe in a new baby, half our
It
energy
gets divided. Yeah.
yeah, like it just kind of all is connected, right? And then is energy shared, um, you know, trans solar system, right? Like is it just the universe, right? Is there energy dispersing beyond the atmosphere? And
Yeah.
it's really interesting. I think definitely beyond my area of expertise.
Yeah, just
But
speculation at this point.
but it was funny. I mentioned being a therapist earlier, and I think as a Poltergeist fan, I feel like you'd appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like Dr. Lesh.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I was a
Yeah,
psychologist who got lost in
love
his
it.
ghostly hobby. You know,
Yeah, no, that's great.
she
I
is
think
actually. I love that character so much. Not to
oh,
take offense to
yeah.
Poltergeist, but as a
Yeah.
kid, I just was like so drawn to her like maternal nature.
There was yeah, yeah, she's an easy one to connect to. I
Yeah,
agree.
Beatrice Straight. I mean, I haven't seen her in much other stuff, Beatrice Straight, but
So
like I would
yeah.
love to go back and see like her old movies. Like
Yeah.
she knocked it out. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think too, if you want to talk about like division, like if you were to say like if that is what happens to us, if there's like these pieces that are taken, that could also be why when we're ghosts, we don't have any energy to do anything, is because we're not whole. Like we
yeah,
don't have, and if there's maybe the ghost or spirits or whatever you want to call them that are able to show or communicate are ones that have more of their original self than others. Like it's kind of a deep rabbit hole. And I think like, so this is like the best argument for reincarnation I think I've ever heard. And I heard it from a Wiccan.
hmm,
When I worked in the restaurant industry, I worked with this girl, Nicole, and she and I are still friends. And this was at a discovery time in my life where I was kind of moving away from religion and didn't really know what I believed in anymore. And we just had these like conversations because at the time, a lot of people think they know what Wiccan means, but they actually don't. And so I was like
me in high
asking her,
school.
yeah, it's all of us. We all go through that thing where they're like, they dance naked and that's all they do, and they bring up demons to kill. We just have all these weird things.
Yeah,
Those aren't true, by the way. The dancing naked probably, but the other not so much. And so, and she was, I would ask her these questions, and she was always so like patient and kind to me about when I would ask. Of course, I was respectful, that helps. But
yeah.
and I remember one day, like I asked her, I was like, okay, I was like, so you believe in reincarnation? She was like, yes, I do. And I was like, okay. So my question is then, if reincarnation is real, why do we have such a big population people? And I mean, a big population problem with people?
Oh yeah,
Because over the years the population is obviously insane, and this without missing a beat, she goes, yes, we have more people, but how many endangered and extinct animals are there? And I was like, that's kind of a good point. Like
yeah,
I don't know that it did any major swaying, but it's kind of a good point. It's like
yeah.
dinosaurs at one point. Like it's just interesting to think about like what that would mean in the grander scheme. Like if that's real, then that could be why there's more people and less animal. Anyway, I just thought it was like a really great answer to that question.
It is real. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It was a good answer. I don't know what I would have said back to that.
I had nothing. I was just like, you make a fair point, madam. Like I can't
Yeah.
really say a whole lot out after that.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love that. She sounds cool.
Yeah, she's super cool. But and I think it's great that people who do have different belief systems are welcoming to discussing them with people who are, of course, you have to be respectful. You can't talk to people and treat them like what they believe is stupid. That's unfair and it's rude and it's disrespectful. So, but I think because I was always very open anyway to a lot of different things,
Yeah.
like they just ended up being these really cool conversations about what she believes and what she does. And like, and I have a cousin that's Wiccan, and she just sent me, I haven't been able to use it yet. I might be able to after I move, I'll hopefully be able to use it. But it's, she made me a death tarot card candle, and it's like a black candle. And then the vinyl she put on the outside of the candle is like lime green for voices. And she sent me sage and crystals and like how to use them. And it's like,
Yeah.
she sent me incense. I don't have a head for incense. It makes me sick to my stomach. It's so strong.
It can be really strong.
It's so strong. It took literally weeks to get the smell out of the room.
I prefer
But
oils to incense.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like oil diffusers. I prefer that.
Oh
too.
yeah, I can handle those, I think, but this was like, whew, that was strong.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, no, it was a really cool conversation. And just thinking about like pieces of us going into different directions is kind of a cool theory in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna leave it here for tonight.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to leave it.
Okay.
because I think what you like, the way you put it was perfect. Like it becomes a rabbit hole.
It does.
You
Very
know,
deep one.
It becomes a
Yes.
very deep rabbit hole. But it's always fun to just scratch the surface and just talk about it. Because like I said, you got to come at it from just an open mind, an open heart. And like, You know, I typically I tend to use the word agnostic for myself, and I hate when
Yeah.
people say it's like the lazy way out. Because you know what it is, I'm just a sponge. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't have it is it's not an exact science. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a very like give me some proof. You know, if I experience something, I'll lean more towards believing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's you know that's it. And I love having these kinds of conversations. I actually minored in religious studies.
I took
Yeah,
religious courses. I did minor in it, but I took religious courses when I was in college. That
yeah.
was part of my big changeover to not really, following the ways I was raised. But yeah, I followed, and it was some interesting. And it's always interesting too because small side tangent, I swear. But like when you take those courses and you're taking them with people who have like hardcore beliefs, it
Mhm.
gets so heated sometimes. Like there were so many times my teacher had to go, okay, enough. Like we need to move on from this. We are not here to convert people. Like let's just keep it
Right,
moving.
right. We have to let go of our attachments to our beliefs. Not that we don't have that. Not that we have to let go of our beliefs, but
No, I know what you
it's
mean.
these attachments, right, that
Yeah.
get people so heated.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't take what other people say so personally. You
No.
know, you
I
can't.
agree. I agree.
No. So, for my viewers, Angel, where can everyone find you?
Oh my God, everywhere. Yeah, so my YouTube channel is Voices from the Mausoleum. I am on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I have a website. My website is just voicesftm.com. My Twitter handle is from Mausoleum. My Instagram, I think, is Voices. I think it's just Voices from the Mausoleum. And then my Facebook is Voices FTM as well. So any versions of those, that's like,
You are everywhere. I'm gonna have to follow you on TikTok.
Oh God, my TikToks are a train wreck, but I'm learning. I'm trying
Yeah.
to yeah, my tick so it's so stupid, but I'm gonna tell you this one more thing because we're talking about TikTok. So my favorite TikTok that I've made, if you go follow me on TikTok, is my pyramid head one. And it's got like it's so annoying to me because it's got like the least amount of views of all the things I've posted, and it's like my favorite one.
Oh,
It's
my
so
husband
cute.
complains all the time because he thinks he's so witty on Twitter. So he's like, you know, the stupidest things go viral, and then the thing that I'm most proud of,
It's
no
like
one likes. He's like, I put a lot of work into that tweet or whatever it is,
or
you know.
whatever it is. I felt that way about my Carrie video. We did Halloween looks last year, and my final one was like this big production with Carrie. Like we did voiceovers and we did the blood and I did the background. No one cared. It's like, damn you. Like I worked so hard on that one.
Screw people. What is wrong with people?
I know. But yeah, so yeah, I'm you guys can find me pretty much everywhere. Pretty
Aw,
much everywhere.
well, thank you, Angel, and everyone else. You can follow me here on my channel and on Twitter at Poltergeist Steve. Until next time.